Disclaimer: this story contains mature themes intended for adult viewers. Viewer discretion is advised. It started with a look that lingered just a second too long. I didn't think much of it at first, just another passing moment, another ordinary evening. But something in the air felt different. Heavy, almost electric. The kind of silence that isn't empty, but full of unspoken questions. The garage was dimly lit, shadows stretching across the concrete floor, the faint hum of the outside world barely reaching inside. I remember brushing a strand of hair behind my ear, trying to ignore the strange warmth rising in my chest. Then it happened again, that look. This time unmistakable. A slow smile followed. Not loud, not obvious. Just enough to make my heart skip. I became suddenly aware of everything, how close we were standing, how the air seemed to tighten around us, how every small movement felt amplified. It wasn't planned. It wasn't even understood yet. But it was there, that quiet pull between strangers, the kind that makes you pause and wonder what could happen if you didn't step away. And then, there was him. Leaning at the edge of the moment, watching, not interrupting, not speaking. Just present. His silence carried weight, as if he already knew something I hadn't fully admitted to myself. I could feel my pulse quicken, not from fear, but from something deeper, curiosity maybe. Or desire wrapped in uncertainty. The kind that makes you feel alive and vulnerable at the same time. No one moved for a second. And yet, everything was shifting. That's the thing about moments like this, they don't announce themselves. They slip in quietly, changing the atmosphere before you even realize what's happening. One glance becomes two. Distance becomes closeness. And suddenly, you're standing at the edge of a choice you didn't expect to face. I should have stepped back. But I didn't. Because in that moment, something inside me wanted to know what would happen next. And that was just the beginning. I told myself it was nothing. Just a moment. Just a strange, fleeting feeling that would pass if I gave it time. But feelings like that don't fade quietly, they grow in the spaces you try to ignore. "Are you okay?" one of them asked softly. His voice pulled me back. I nodded, maybe a little too quickly. Yeah, just tired. It wasn't entirely a lie. But it wasn't the truth either. We had all known each other for a while, friends of friends, occasional gatherings, shared laughter over things that didn't matter much at the time. But tonight, something had shifted. Or maybe, it had always been there, waiting. I moved slightly, pretending to look for something on the workbench. My hand brushed against his, just barely. But it was enough. Neither of us pulled away right away. "Sorry," I said, though my voice came out quieter than I intended. He smiled, just a little. "You don't seem sorry." My breath caught. I looked away, but I could still feel his presence, closer now. Behind me, I sensed movement. The other one stepping nearer, not intruding, but not distant either. It felt like being caught between two currents, both gentle, both impossible to ignore. "This is weird, right?" I said, half laughing, trying to break the tension. "Only if we pretend it is," the second one replied. That made me turn. There was no teasing in his eyes. Just honesty. And something else, something that made my chest tighten in a way I didn't fully understand. I crossed my arms, more to steady myself than anything. "We shouldn't," but even as I said it, I didn't move away. Silence settled again, but this time, it wasn't uncertain. It was charged. I could feel their eyes on me, not demanding, not rushing, just waiting. And somehow, that made it harder. In the corner of my vision, I caught him again, leaning by the doorway, watching quietly. Not stopping anything. Not encouraging it either. Just there. That grounded me and unsettled me at the same time. I took a slow breath. "This changes things," I whispered. "Maybe," one of them said gently. "Or maybe it just shows what's already there." I looked between them, then down at my hands. And before I could overthink it, before I could step back or explain it away, my fingers reached out. Just a small movement. Barely noticeable. But intentional. I let my hand rest lightly against his arm. Warm. Steady. Real. No one spoke. No one needed to. Because in that quiet contact, something had already begun. And none of us were ready to stop it. The warmth of that small touch didn't fade, it spread. I pulled my hand back slowly, but the feeling lingered, like a quiet echo I couldn't shake. My heart was beating faster now, not from confusion anymore, but from something I didn't want to name. "This isn't a good idea," I said, barely above a whisper. No one argued. That made it worse. Because if someone had told me to stop, if someone had broken the moment, I might have listened. But instead, there was only silence, and the steady pull of something none of us were willing to interrupt. I glanced toward the doorway again. He was still there, watching. Not angry, not surprised, just still. And somehow, that steadiness made everything feel even more fragile. I swallowed. "We can't pretend this doesn't matter." "It does matter," one of them said softly. His voice was closer now. Not overwhelming, just enough that I could feel it more than hear it. "That's why it feels like this." I turned toward him, and for a second, just a second, we held eye contact longer than we should have. It said too much. I looked away first. My shoulder brushed against the other, and this time, neither of us pretended it was accidental. I felt his hand shift slightly, like he almost reached for mine, but stopped. That hesitation, it said everything. "We're crossing into something we can't undo," I murmured. "Then why does it feel like we already have?" he replied. That hit deeper than I expected. Because he was right. This wasn't just about a moment. It was about all the small things that had led here, the glances we ignored, the conversations that lingered too long, the way we always seemed to end up standing just a little closer than necessary. I wrapped my arms around myself, trying to hold on to something steady. "I don't want to hurt anyone." "You're not," the other said gently. "You're just feeling something real." Real. The word settled in my chest, heavy and undeniable. I looked up again, and this time, all three of us were caught in the same quiet pause. No one moved. But the space between us had disappeared. One step, that's all it would take. I could feel it building, like standing on the edge of something irreversible. My breath slowed. So did theirs. And then he leaned in, just slightly. Not enough to close the distance, but enough to change everything. I didn't step back. I didn't step forward either. And in that suspended moment, right before anything could happen, we all understood the same thing. The line was right there. And we were seconds away from crossing it. No one spoke. The air felt thicker now, like even breathing required more effort. I became aware of everything at once, the faint sound of my own heartbeat, the closeness of them, the way the space between us had completely disappeared. And then, the smallest shift. The man by the doorway straightened, glancing at us one last time before quietly stepping away. The soft sound of his footsteps faded, and just like that, it was only the three of us. Alone. I let out a nervous breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. This just got a lot more real. A quiet chuckle broke the tension, but it didn't last long. It wasn't humor, it was nerves. The kind that comes right before something changes. "Are you okay?" one of them asked again, softer this time. I nodded, though my voice betrayed me. "I think so." But my hands, they weren't steady. I looked down, noticing how close we were standing now. If either of them moved even slightly, there would be no space left at all. "Funny," I said, trying to lighten the moment, "how we all suddenly forgot how to act normal." "Maybe this is normal," the other replied gently. I looked up at that and instantly wished I hadn't. Because the way he was looking at me, it wasn't casual anymore. It wasn't curiosity. It was intention. And I felt it. My breath caught again. "You're making this harder." "Am I?" he asked, stepping just a fraction closer. That was it. Now there was no distance. I could feel the warmth of him, the quiet rise and fall of his breathing. My heart raced in response, as if trying to keep up. Beside me, the other shifted too, not forward, not back, just enough that I could feel his presence in a way that made everything sharper. More real. "This is crazy," I whispered. "No," one of them said softly. "This is honest." The word lingered. Honest. I let out a shaky laugh, more breath than sound. Honest doesn't make it easier. No, he admitted. But it makes it harder to ignore. Silence followed again, but now it pulsed with something undeniable. I became hyper-aware of every small detail, the way my fingers curled slightly at my sides, the way my chest rose and fell, the way neither of them looked away. And then a hand moved. Slowly. Carefully. Not touching, just hovering close enough that I could feel the warmth before contact. My entire body reacted to that almost touch. I didn't pull away. But I didn't close the distance either. We just stayed there, balanced on the edge. Breath mixing with breath. Seconds stretching longer than they should. And right as it felt impossible to wait any longer, I whispered, barely audible, "If we do this, there's no going back." No one answered. Because we all knew. And still no one moved. It happened in a breath. One small, irreversible step. I didn't even realize I'd moved until there was no space left between us. The hesitation that had held us back for so long finally gave way, not in a rush, not in chaos, but in something quiet, certain. His hand found mine first. Not rushed. Not unsure. Just there. And this time I didn't pull away. The warmth of his fingers wrapped around mine, steadying the storm inside me. On my other side, I felt the shift, the second presence closer now, grounding me in a different way. It wasn't overwhelming like I feared. It was calm. Real. For a moment, no one spoke. No one needed to. Everything we had been holding back, the glances, the silence, the almosts, it all settled into this single point in time. "I don't want this to be something we regret," I said softly, my voice trembling despite my effort to stay steady. "You won't," one of them replied. But it wasn't a promise. It was hope. And that's what made it honest. I looked between them, my heart racing, not from uncertainty anymore, but from clarity. Because this wasn't just about attraction. It wasn't just a moment that got out of control. It meant something. That realization hit deeper than anything else. My fingers tightened slightly, then loosened. And slowly, I stepped back. The space returned, but it felt different now. Not empty. Just understood. Both of them looked at me, not confused, not frustrated, just waiting. I wanted to know what this was, I admitted, my voice quieter now, but stronger. "And I think I do." Silence followed, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was acceptance. I glanced toward the doorway instinctively, half expecting to see him still there. He wasn't. But somehow, his presence still lingered in my mind, steady, patient, real in a way this moment couldn't replace. I smiled faintly, more to myself than anyone else. "This doesn't mean nothing," I added. "It just means I have something real I'm not ready to lose." There it was. The choice. Not forced. Not dramatic. Just true. One of them nodded slowly, a small, understanding smile forming. Sometimes knowing is enough. The other exhaled softly, tension easing from his shoulders. "Yeah, sometimes it is." I took one last look at them, at what almost happened, at what could have been. And then I turned. Not running. Not escaping. Just walking forward with my heart still racing, but finally clear. Because the strongest pull wasn't the one that almost took me. It was the one that brought me back. It finally broke, not loudly, not suddenly, but like a quiet wave that had been building all night, finally reaching the shore. I didn't think anymore. I just felt. My hand, still hovering between hesitation and desire, closed the distance at last. Fingers brushed, then settled, this time without doubt, without pulling back. The contact sent a warmth through me that felt less like fire and more like release, like something inside me had finally stopped resisting. And somehow, that made everything softer. No one rushed. No one pushed. We moved carefully, like we all understood that this moment wasn't just about wanting, it was about meaning. "I don't want this to disappear tomorrow," I whispered, my voice barely steady. "It won't," he said quietly. "Not if it's real." That word again. Real. I looked up, meeting his eyes, and for the first time, there was no hesitation left in mine. Just honesty. Just acceptance of what had been growing between us all along. On my other side, I felt that same quiet presence, closer now, but not overwhelming. It wasn't chaos like I had imagined. It wasn't losing control. It was choosing not to hide anymore. The tension that once felt unbearable shifted into something deeper. A connection. A shared understanding that none of this was or careless. It mattered. All of it. I let out a breath that felt like I had been holding it for hours, maybe longer. My shoulders relaxed, and without realizing it, I leaned slightly forward, no longer caught between staying and stepping away. For a moment, everything aligned. The closeness. The silence. The truth we had all been circling. And then a sound from behind. We turned. There he was again, standing at the doorway. But this time, something was different. He wasn't just watching. He stepped forward. Slow. Calm. Certain. My heart jumped not from fear, but from the weight of what this meant. I think, he said, his voice steady, we should stop pretending this is simple. The room stilled. No one argued. Because he was right. This wasn't just a moment anymore. It wasn't curiosity or tension or something that could be brushed aside later. It had become a choice. I looked at him, really looked this time. At the quiet strength in his expression, the honesty in his eyes. Then I looked back at the others. And in that instant, everything became clear. Not easy, but clear. I gently stepped back again, not to create distance, but to stand on my own. This matters too much to rush, I said softly. Silence followed, but it wasn't heavy anymore. It was understood. Because the real climax wasn't what almost happened, it was the moment we all realized this was bigger than just desire. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything we had almost done, everything we had felt, and everything we had chosen instead. No one rushed to fill it. For the first time that night, there was no tension pressing against my chest, no confusion clouding my thoughts. Just a quiet, steady clarity that settled deep within me. I stepped outside the garage. The cool night air brushed against my skin, grounding me instantly. It felt different out here, open, calm, honest. I took a slow breath, letting it all sink in. Footsteps followed. I didn't need to turn to know it was him. "You okay?" he asked gently. I smiled, a real one this time. "Yeah, I am." And I meant it. He stepped beside me, not too close, not distant either, just enough to feel present. For a moment, we both looked ahead, saying nothing, letting the quiet speak for us. "I was watching you in there," he admitted. Not because I didn't care, but because I wanted to understand. I glanced at him. "And do you?" He nodded slowly. "I think so." It wasn't about them. It was about you figuring something out. That hit deeper than I expected. Because he was right. This wasn't about crossing a line. It was about finding it. "I needed to know if what we have is real," I said softly. "And," he asked. I turned fully toward him now. "It is." No hesitation. No doubt. Just truth. Something in his expression softened instantly, like a weight he hadn't shown had finally lifted. He reached for my hand, not urgently, not possessively, just gently. Familiar. Safe. I intertwined my fingers with his, and this time, there was no confusion behind it. No second thoughts. Just certainty. Behind us, the garage door remained open, the light still spilling out, but it no longer pulled me back. Whatever had been waiting there had served its purpose. It had shown me something. But this, standing here, hand in hand, heart steady, this was what stayed. "We're okay," he asked quietly. I squeezed his hand. "We're more than okay." We stood there for a while longer, not needing to say much else. The night felt softer now, like everything had settled into place exactly where it belonged. And as we walked away together, side by side, I realized something simple but powerful. Some moments test you. Others define you. But the rare ones, they do both. And those are the ones you never forget.